On January 29, 2017, a Reddit user named Throwaway181787 made a deeply disturbing post on the r/confessions subreddit titled, "I was in a cult." Unlike most posts that claim such dramatic experiences, this one contained a level of detail and consistency that left many readers genuinely concerned. The post described how the user was manipulated into joining what was presented as a therapeutic summer camp for people with mental illnesses, only to discover something far more sinister. The original post began with the user explaining their need for anonymity.
"I don't want this to get back to me, but I haven't told anyone about this. I need to get it off my chest."
This introduction immediately set a tone of secrecy and danger that would become increasingly justified as the story unfolded. According to the post, 3 years prior, while the user was in college and suffering from depression, a man, whom the poster referred to as Bob, appeared at their group therapy session. Bob was described as really energetic, really friendly and understanding, and spoke to the vulnerable teenagers. He pitched what he called a group therapy holiday, where they would participate in activities like rafting and rock climbing while continuing their therapy. The key selling point: it was completely free, as the college would cover all expenses for the 5-week program. When the Reddit user expressed interest and asked for details, Bob didn't provide a business card, but instead requested the user's contact information. Later that same night, Bob unexpectedly showed up at the user's home, speaking with their parents and convincing them to sign paperwork, allowing their child to attend the camp. The next time the user saw Bob was when boarding a coach with other people around their age, all apparently with mental health issues. Upon arrival at the walled-off campsite, things quickly began to take a disturbing turn. First, everyone was subjected to an uncomfortably thorough physical examination. Then, they discovered their suitcases and belongings were nowhere to be found. When confronted, Bob claimed they weren't allowed their personal belongings or phones as specified in the contract they had signed. He provided them with matching tracksuits, claiming he didn't want their nice clothes to get dirty. This marked the beginning of a series of increasingly controlling behaviors from the camp leaders. At dinner, the group was instructed to pray to the gods before eating, despite there being no prior indication that this was a religious program. Later that night, another leader referred to as Todd forced them to sleep in their tracksuits rather than their boxers, despite the summer heat. Boys and girls weren't allowed to talk to each other during swimming sessions. Communication was limited to specific activities, and every meal required prayers mentioning phrases like,
"The gods will show us the way to the end."
The Reddit user described becoming really creeped out. Despite the exciting activities being offered, camp leaders began suggesting that attendees could stay beyond the 5 weeks and even invite their families to live with them. When the user asked Bob to call home, they were firmly denied, with Bob insisting that the family had already been told.
"I have arrived safely, and I'm happy."
The situation reached a critical point during a campfire therapy session when the user sneaked away to find a phone. In an empty office, they called home and told their mother about the situation. While searching for their phone and suitcase, they were caught by Todd, who dragged them out, accused them of committing a sin, and punished the entire group by sending everyone to bed without dinner. Having retrieved their phone, the user texted their father, who arrived at the campsite with their mother. The user made a desperate run to their parents' car, pursued by the camp leaders who insisted a contract had been signed, preventing the user from leaving before the 5 weeks were up. Fortunately, the parents managed to drive away with their child locked safely in the car. The harassment didn't end there. The next morning, Todd and other group leaders appeared at the family's front door, refusing to leave without the user. The police were called to escort them away, but the family knew they were still being watched. The user remained housebound for the rest of the summer. When college started again and the user finally ventured out alone, approximately 10 camp members surrounded them on the street. Local residents intervened after hearing the commotion, and a fight broke out while the user fled home. Although the group leaders were arrested, new groups continued to appear in the area each week. Eventually, the family was forced to take drastic measures: moving house, the user discontinuing college, and the family adopting fake identities to avoid being found. The college stopped funding the group, and police began an investigation. The Reddit user reported that Todd committed suicide while out on bail, but beyond that, they had little additional information about what happened to the organization or the other attendees. The original Reddit post has been the subject of intense discussion and speculation since it appeared. However, the story took an unexpected turn years after its original posting. In a final, deeply personal update, the original poster revealed the truth behind the viral Reddit confession. The entire account had been a work of creative fiction, crafted by a young writer during a quiet day at their first office job. Writing fictional posts had long been a private hobby. The cult narrative was just one of many experiments, inspired by a podcast episode about the infamous Heaven's Gate cult. What began as a simple writing exercise unexpectedly took on a life of its own. The story spread across the internet, captivating countless readers and sparking hours of speculation, debate, and deep dives. The author watched with quiet amazement as their creation grew into a full-blown internet mystery. But the most heart-rending moment came with their final post. The author, now facing devastating medical news, knew their time was limited. With honesty and vulnerability, they chose to pull back the curtain, not to diminish the story's impact, but to share the truth while they still could. For them, the Reddit post had always been more than just fiction. It was a lifeline, a way to connect, to escape, to create meaning during some of the darkest moments of their life. Unlike many Reddit tales that fade quietly into the background, this one ended with something rare: clarity, honesty, and a final act of connection. In the end, it wasn't about the cult, or the theories, or the twists. It was about the storyteller and the unexpected beauty of being heard.